I've been looking at some COIR posters as I was travelling home to Cork this weekend, and the posters are a combination of big lies, half-truths and deceits. And I'm very pleased that at this early stage of the campaign that we're going to be able to work our way through these big lies, half-truths and deceits so that we don't end up with a campaign using American-style right-wing scare techniques and tactics to try to frighten people. And in all sorts of ways, I've seen things around, some of which I'm bound to say to do with this COIR and, as the Minister remarked, youth defence logic, frankly, scandalous.
OK, give us an idea of the big lies you say that they're printing right now in their leaflets.
Well, let me give you an example, if I may, of one of them. It relates to a leaflet which is going around in what I would call an off-COIR organisation, but when you click on its website you end up with COIR, which, among other things, was trying to suggest a link between Ireland, Europe, the Lisbon Treaty and euthanasia. And frankly, not only is that not provided for, but I regard that kind of thing as not just a shameful lie, but actually as constituting an abuse of vulnerable and elderly people. These leaflets, and one was handed in to me this week, was handed to an old person outside a church leaving Mass one morning. Now, this kind of stuff is simply not acceptable. Abusing old people in that way, creating groundless fears in their minds, and then hoping through that to achieve a political end, I think is simply a reprehensible kind of tactic.
OK, let me put that point to Brian Hickey, spokesperson for COIR. Have you been distributing leaflets which have been scaremongering of that nature?
No, I don't know what off-COIR organisation Mr. Cox is referring to. We were accused, of course, last year of telling people that the Lisbon Treaty would bring in abortion and euthanasia.
But you do believe it will bring in abortion? You believe it will pave the way for abortion in this country?
Well, it may well pave the way for it. Yes, we do have concerns in that area.
You have expressed over and over again concerns that the Lisbon Treaty will lead to abortion in this country. So, I mean, to suggest that it's not a core part of your philosophy is incorrect, isn't it?
We haven't said that the treaty explicitly provides for that.
But it will pave the way.
Well, yes, with the attached Charter of Fundamental Rights, that could very well happen, because the interpretation of those rights will be not under the jurisdiction of our Supreme Court, but under that of the European Court of Justice. Even
though we have clearly stated in our own constitution that abortion will not take place in this country unless it has to take place under very special circumstances.
Well, unfortunately, the judgments of the ECJ are superior to what our constitution...
Is that the case, Pat Cox?
This again is an example of powerful misrepresentation. Let me take the specific point. This group, Youth Defence COIR, have consistently over the years, so not just for this treaty, told this big lie, vote yes and you get abortion. In order directly to address it as a matter of law, overriding law on which the European Court of Justice has no right to distort the interpretation, in the Maastricht Treaty, the Irish people got a special legally binding guarantee. In our guarantees that we have now negotiated, that has been extended to include anything arising under the Charter of Fundamental Rights in the area of family law and education, with express reference to several articles of our Constitution. It is simply wrong in law and wrong in politics to say it. Indeed, on a weekend when so much of the news has been dominated by the passing of a great Democrat, Edward Kennedy, the memory of the Kennedys runs high this weekend. Let me give one quote from John Kennedy. The great enemy of the truth is often not the lie, deliberate, contrived and dishonest, but the myth, persistent, persuasive and unrealistic.
Okay.
And COIR Youth Defence are in the myth business, the distortion business, and are not in the business of telling it like it is.
Brian Hickey, if I can just come back to you, spokesperson for COIR. I'm just looking at some of your leaflets here, OK? And one of them is quoting Pope Benedict on the Lisbon Treaty back in January, a godless empire, don't deny your Christian roots. Another one says it's the same bad treaty, a godless document which will cause moral and social harm.
Well, yes, it is the same bad treaty, and just Mr. Cox...
What do you mean by that, a godless document which will cause moral and social harm? What kind of moral and social harm will it cause?
Well, it could, as I said, the attached Charter of Fundamental Rights contains a lot of very vaguely defined rights which can all be found in our own constitution. So it's not something that we need. But the interpretation of this will be the preserve of the European Court of Justice. And I would not trust that body to make the kind of judgments that would be in keeping with our constitution.
But you've just heard Pat Cox say, we've now got all sorts of attachments and guarantees attached to the Lisbon Treaty because we rejected it the first time around.
Well, that's not correct. And Mr Cox must surely be well aware those guarantees that were negotiated are not part of the Lisbon Treaty, and therefore they're not binding in European law.
Terms and conditions, if I may say, and this is the whole point, the difference between what happened last year and this year is that the Irish government, and trust comes into this, by the way, and I think we're right to trust when we deal with partners. The EU is based on trust, and people who cannot trust other people cannot really do business with them at any level. But when we went to our partners and said, yes, the Irish people are sovereign, the Irish people have issues, and the Irish people want reassurances, our partners have offered us reassurances that constitute the terms and conditions on which we're being asked to vote again. So we cannot dismiss those. Those terms and conditions are clear. One, if and when we vote yes, that all of these guarantees that we're getting will be legally binding, will be lodged with the United Nations, and will constitute between the 27 states of the EU an internationally binding treaty, and at the first opportunity will be transformed into protocols which become direct EU law. And in this instance, we have a precedent. Denmark did precisely this after the Maastricht Treaty, and to the letter of the law, both in substance and form, everything that was negotiated was honoured, because trust matters in these relationships, and Ireland has built on that trust successfully over the years.